So the war's not going well for Israel or the United States. We don't know how much punishment Israel is taking because of very heavy censorship. But reading through the lines, it's significant. Iran has no interest in negotiating. It's tried that route. It realizes these are not entities, either the United States or Israel, that they can appease or negotiate with. Iran has the capacity to inflict tremendous economic damage. It's already inflicting economic damage over the long term. Where do you see it going, and what do you expect the response to be?
Well, just to try to continue with the theme of this discussion about how Trump is being manipulated and moved, the reason that the Iranians won't negotiate, I think the main reason is who's on the other side of the table or down the hallway, since they negotiate through an intermediary in Oman. It's Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And these are dedicated Zionist movement ideologues and operatives who used negotiations to weaken Iran's ability to respond to an Israeli decapitation strike. Steve Witkoff is a guy who carries a pager gifted to him by Benjamin Netanyahu in honor of the pager operation.
Right.
He's someone who declared at a fundraiser for an Israeli group called United Hatzalah that his mother would be so proud to see him speak immediately after the former head of the Mossad, Yossi Cohen. Sorry, his mother would be so proud. His sons are also very involved in the Zionist world and in Trump corruption networks. Jared Kushner, I spoke about him earlier. Kushner was not even supposed to be part of this administration. He simply emerged out of nowhere to lead negotiations and lead the Board of Peace, which is a board of war designed to replace the UN, with its first project being to profit from the concentration camp, the biometrically controlled concentration camp of Gaza. So those are the figures on the other line. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that he constantly is turning down Steve Witkoff's attempts to negotiate. Steve Witkoff, after the U.S. launched this war with Israel, assassinating Iran's supreme leader and all of its, and as many leaders as possible, and killing many common people in the process, Steve Witkoff went on one of the Sunday shows, and he said that Iran refused to not only end enrichment, which is a lie, but that Iran refused to give up its navy and to give up its ballistic missile program, and that they can't have a navy because it will allow them to close what Steve Witkoff called the Gulf of Hormuz. He didn't even know what the Strait of Hormuz was called. By saying that, it was very clear what was going on in these negotiations. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were putting forward Israeli terms in order to make sure that Iran's red lines were crossed at every point. What sovereign country is going to give up its own navy or give up a ballistic missile program that exists, that's entirely legal under international law, and which exists to deter these attacks that it continues to receive? It's not going to happen. And we were told in the media that these negotiations are only focusing on Iran's nuclear weapons. Well, Steve Witkoff went to Trump and said Iran can produce 9 to 12 nuclear bombs within a week because they've reached 60% enrichment. And that got back to the Iranians, and they said, like, this guy doesn't know anything. You can't produce a nuclear weapon at 60%. He's an idiot. So, I mean, you're dealing with ideologically motivated Zionists who are also complete morons who can't even understand the basic technical parameters to even come to a deal. So why would Iran ever go back to the table? The only thing Iran can do at this point is impose an end to the war through force. That's the only language that the Trump administration has demonstrated that it understands. There's another thing happening now because we're 2 weeks into the war or so. Iran is showing that it can hit back. Just today, the fuel depot at Dubai International Airport was hit. Iran has been able to continue meeting the U.S. and Israel up the escalation ladder. And that's very shocking, especially for someone like Donald Trump, who has just been a target of manipulation and has no capacity for critical thought. And so what is Donald Trump being told now that the war is going badly? By those who want to keep him in the war. There's definitely a faction in the Trump administration that would like to get out of this and that has buyer's remorse. I think Marco Rubio might even be part of that faction. He wants to focus on Cuba and his little Don Roe doctrine, Gusano project in the Western Hemisphere. But those who want to keep Trump in the war are telling him that all of the images he's seeing of destruction at U.S. bases, for example, the U.S. consulate in Baghdad, U.S. embassy was evacuated this week. All Americans are being evacuated from Iraq. What's going on there? They're getting hit by drones from Iran, from the resistance or outfits inside Iraq. And Donald Trump doesn't believe it. He's being told this is all AI. And he threw a tantrum yesterday on Truth Social and on Air Force One, screaming at the press and declaring on Truth Social that all these videos of Iran's supposed successes are AI and the whole media is falling for it. He screamed at a reporter and said that a major rally of 250,000 people in Tehran after he assassinated Khamenei was fake, that was an AI image. The New York Times has verified the image. I don't need to verify the images. I can see from all my acquaintances and sources in Iran that this is happening every night there. The whole society is mobilized and united against this assault, or much of the society. But Donald Trump doesn't believe any of it. And then Pete Hegseth, this glowering, sociopathic, dry drunk character who should have been fired over Signalgate and managed to stay relevant by bombing fishermen with drones off the coast of Venezuela, is now banning photographers from the Pentagon because he doesn't like the way they make him look. They make him look like he's weary and angry and under pressure. And he threw a temper tantrum at the Pentagon press corps just 2 days ago, screaming at the press, you're cheering for Donald Trump's failure. That's all you do is cheer for his failure. And he declared that he can't wait for David Ellison to take over all of their networks. David Ellison being another Israeli billionaire asset who controls Paramount, CBS, and will soon control CNN, Viacom, TikTok, and many other media assets. So they're in panic mode. They're blaming the press. This is not where they thought they were going to be. And Donald Trump is now being manipulated by being told that the entire failing war is a simulation and that he's actually winning. But what are they doing? What are they hitting? Most of the targets that the U.S. is hitting are civilian residential targets. Over 17,000 residential buildings have been damaged or destroyed, according to the Iranian Committee on the Red Cross. And the military targets they hit primarily are, Iran's Navy, naval ships that would not be useful in closing the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran's Air Force, which was outdated and, might have been useful in a regional conflict or to attack ISIS, but would have never been able to compete with the U.S. Air Force. But they're not able to suppress Iran's Shahid drones. Iran had launched the 54th wave of Operation True Promise 4 just yesterday with ballistic missiles. And so it's not working, and Iran is, I think, ready for a months-long conflict that could fully exhaust U.S. empire. What they're demanding is the withdrawal of U.S. bases from the region. That's what Donald Trump is fighting for now. He's not fighting for regime change. There's not going to be regime change. He's fighting to simply maintain the U.S. presence in the region and to open the Strait of Hormuz, facing global economic catastrophe. The Europeans are not coming to his aid because How did he treat them with the tariffs? He threatened them over Greenland. The Europeans have more minesweeping ships than the U.S. He needs them, and they're not coming to his rescue at this point. So we may be seeing the unraveling of Donald Trump through this war and the Trump administration, and we're only like a year into that administration.
I mean, my fear, Max, is that Bibi will reach for the nukes.
Well, why do you fear that?
Because I think Israel cannot sustain this kind of war of attrition.
I think that's a legitimate fear. Many, I think one of the bigger stories of the year is that Israel likely tested a nuclear weapon in Dimona in, I think, early February. There was a massive earthquake near the secret nuclear facility in Dimona that was likely the result of the test of a nuclear bomb. And Israel was sending a message, but also preparing for the worst.
Yeah.
And I think we should consider the possibility that Donald Trump could detonate some form of nuclear weapon or tactical nuclear weapon if he's unable to simply walk away. The Israelis do not want Donald Trump to walk away from this. He's being urged to walk away by many of his advisors, but the Israelis have all this leverage over him. So we should be concerned about whether they'll drop a nuclear weapon. And this is why it's completely rational and legitimate for Iran to develop a nuclear weapons program as a means of deterrence against these psychotic forces that are coming to destroy them.